any video game is replayable if you like it enough and it's good enough, but Metal Gear Solid is probably one of the most replayable series of video games ever made. And today, we both wanted to talk about that. Nate, you are here as well. You kind of thought of this video idea.
I did, because I'm really intelligent.
Yeah, and you just played through Metal Gear Solid 1, which is probably 99% of it. I think your intelligence is like 1% of the reason we got here.
Right, yeah.
So anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe. Let us know what your favorite unlockable or secret or whatever is in Metal Gear Solid. What is the thing that keeps you coming back to these games? Because obviously, I think to start out with, Metal Gear Solid is a game series that you can play in some different ways. Do you want to be more aggressive with it? Do you want to be more stealthy, as is sort of intended? How do you want to play? What do you want to do? And there's a lot of different places where you have a decision as well on how you want to tackle that actual boss fight or that enemy encounter. I think those gameplay loops, those core things, they keep you coming back to the games, but there's also a lot of post-game unlockables and secrets that I think really play into getting you to want to play the game again.
Yeah, I think the Metal Gear Solid games, or franchise I should say, is probably the best with like post-game material for sure, and also unlockables and secrets and hidden details and things like that. I just replayed Metal Gear Solid 1, so this game's kind of fresh in my brain, but I think this game has some of the most interesting post-game unlockables of any game out there. Like, for example, there's a point in the game where there's like a torture scene. If you succumb to the torture, which I won't get into spoilers as to what that is about or anything, but
it does lead to a character death.
It does lead to a character death.
Yeah.
You basically get a stealth camouflage suit, which I find really cool and really interesting. So when you replay the game again, basically you can put on this suit and you're basically invisible.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that really fun. It's a really interesting mechanic to get into the game if you want to play it again with now this new invisible suit. But anyways, if you also live through the torture, like you survive it or whatever, you get a bandana, which gives you unlimited ammo for your next playthrough. So those are just two examples of very interesting unlockables that you get in this game. Something fun, something enjoyable that when you replay the game, basically completely changes how you play the game.
Well, and also
it's fun.
Those endings are different too.
Yes, they are different as well.
When you actually choose that decision, it affects the entire ending of the game.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool too, because then you not only have a reason to replay it to get the other item and try out that other ability, you're kind of encouraged to go back to see the other ending.
Yeah.
To see what you missed out on. Like, well, what happened if I didn't do that? Would that have gone differently? And then you go back and it does.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing I think is really interesting. It also affects in-game conversations. There are a lot of things in these games that you do where if you take an action or don't take an action, someone will call you on the codec and be like, what are you doing?
Right.
Or why didn't you do that?
Yeah.
And then you'll have a conversation about it. A good example of that is in Metal Gear Solid 2 when you're playing as Raiden. If you're out on the big shell deck and you start shooting the birds over and over again and being a psycho and just killing these birds who are sitting there for no reason, you will get a call from a character in the game. Rose will call you and be like, why are you killing birds? You're an asshole.
Right.
And you will get chewed out for it. It's like they think of things. That's kind of the point here is there's so many things that you can do to influence the game in small ways that somebody thought of.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was like, there's going to be some guy out there who tries to shoot those birds. Well, let's have there be a unique interaction about it.
Yeah.
Or there's an example in Metal Gear Solid 2 as well where you can go in a locker that has a picture of a girl in a bikini in it. And then Otacon will call you and be like, Snake, this is not the time to do what you're doing. And basically act like you're being a pervert.
Right.
Because you're hanging out in that locker looking at pictures of women. You know what I mean? And there are a lot of different scenarios where this kind of stuff happens. That's something I really like about this game series entirely, is that it's not just unlockables, but also secrets. But there's other unlockables too for the first game that I think you wanted to talk about, and then there's a few throughout the series.
Yeah, like in the first game, if you beat the game twice, Snake comes up the elevator wearing a tuxedo, which I find very funny. basically you can't see the tuxedo until you ride the, and then Snake takes off his swimming gear, but he's in a tuxedo instead of his stealth suit. If you play the Metal Gear Solid 1 Integral version, which was like a Japanese version of the game that's in the Metal Gear Solid collection, there's actually a way to get Meryl to wear Snake's outfit, which I find interesting. That game had some really interesting unlockables. It also had some really cool secrets too. Like there's little secrets with Sniper Wolf where you can actually get her bandana, which allows you to sneak past her wolves because they smell her and think it's her.
But then if you don't do that, they attack you.
Yeah, they just attack you.
And you have to do that
it's
totally
really
differently.
Hard. Yeah. You can get the wolves to pee on your box, so then they think like you're a wolf as you're walking through the area. So I don't know. That game has some really interesting unlockables and secrets and things like that. But that's just one example of all the Metal Gear. Every Metal Gear Solid game has this stuff too.
I have one more for Metal Gear Solid 1 real quick, and that is that when you're playing the game on the original PlayStation, also, they've added it into the Master Collection where you can choose what games you wanted to have on a virtual memory card. But let's say you were playing on PlayStation 1, you had a memory card and you had played a bunch of sports games. Well, when you're in the boss battle with Psycho Mantis, to prove that he is actually psychic, he'll read your memory card and he'll be like, I see you are a fan of sports games.
Right.
And say stuff to you like that. And it's different depending on what you actually played. And to, you know, kids playing that game, or even adults at the time who hadn't experienced anything like that, that was really cool. And if they played different games, let's say they played through Metal Gear Solid, let's say they deleted their old, you know, NHL or Madden file on their memory card, or maybe they didn't. Maybe they just played a bunch of Castlevania or something else after. And they go back in, maybe now Psycho Mantis mentions something else. So those interactions will play out differently depending on what you played outside of the series even.
Right.
Which I thought was really awesome. Also, you get a digital camera to take back into the game that then you can use to interact with the world in the first game. But it's not just the first game that does this. That was just like, I think that's the freshest for both of us.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of examples in Metal Gear Solid 1. In Metal Gear Solid 2, something I never even knew about until I looked up this list is that you can actually upgrade your grip strength in Metal Gear Solid 2. You might think that it's spent in the time in the locker looking at the bikini photos. That was actually me upgrading my grip strength in real life, though.
Right.
Snake doesn't do it there.
You also do that with Dead or Alive, too.
You can actually unlock different grip levels. You do 100 pull-ups, and you get a stronger grip in the game. If you want to get grip level 3, you have to get level 2 first. Then you do 100 more pull-ups. So there's a lot of different things you can do to actually change your character stats there, because it's basically like your character is getting stronger. You can get a bandana, which is infinite ammo. You get that if you complete the tanker portion of the game with at least 46 dog tags, but you can also get that stealth camouflage as well by completing the game with 76 dog tags. And then there's even more stuff there that you can get.
One of the most interesting things I find is something that probably doesn't even affect the game at all, but you can actually unlock a shaver. So long story short, it makes Snake appear clean shaven when you meet him in the game. So I don't know, I find that very interesting.
Yeah,
it's
there's
stuff like that that's just fun to me.
It's just little things.
Yeah.
You know, and you think like, oh, that's just small things. That doesn't really matter that much, does it? But they add up. You know, it's not just one little secret. It's tons of little secrets and unlockables. Even the fact that when you beat Metal Gear Solid 2 once, you will get a different title screen.
Yeah.
It will change. You know, that's something that you don't see enough of, I think, in games. Just little touches like that that make you want to come back to it and feel like, hey, I'm making progress. I'm doing stuff. You know, I'm adding to the game world and I'm actually learning new things. There's little hidden mechanics in these games too, not just the Sniper Wolf thing, but a lot of stuff like that I think you wouldn't really find unless you either played through the games multiple times or you went and looked them up online.
Yeah, another interesting unlockable you get is actually in Metal Gear Solid 3. There's a lot of cool camouflages you can actually get, but the way to unlock them is you actually defeat various boss like battles or characters or whatever non-lethally, which I find kind of interesting because it kind of changes the way of how you'd fight some of them. But anyway, some of them have special properties like improved stamina recovery or fire damage immunity, different things like that, that I find very interesting. So those are just little details that are in games that make you want to play the game again. You know, because maybe you play through the game once, like Metal Gear Solid 3, for example, and maybe you just play through it how you want, you know, you beat the game, whatever. But then maybe you play through it again and you're like, oh, actually, I want to try taking down some of these bosses non-lethally so I can get some of these camouflages. Because they actually add stuff to the game. They change the way of how you play the game. So every time you play, it's basically a new experience.
There's even secret collaborations in the Metal Gear Solid franchise. Like, for example, you can get Altair's costume from Assassin's Creed 1 if you get the assassin emblem or use a specific code in the game. Then you can play with that in MGS4. And then in MGS5, I think the sky is kind of the limit on how you want to play the game too. Like, do you want to be lethal? Do you want to be non-lethal? Those will play into your ranking. Then those will play into how you actually play the game entirely because it's more open world. You can play the game with different camouflages that will affect your stats and possibly, cause you to play differently because you'll maybe be detected more easily or not as easily in a certain area. Or a final thing that I thought really played into Metal Gear Solid 5 for me was the interpreter skill. And what this basically is that when you are recruiting enemies to join your cause at Mother Base, if you recruit an enemy with an interpretation skill, you are now able to more easily communicate with enemies. So maybe you can actually interrogate an enemy and the interpreter will be on the radio with you and will tell you like, hey, here's what he just said. Those kinds of things are interesting because if you don't have an interpreter, you don't know what the enemies are saying because you don't speak their language. You even see that too with certain characters that you meet in the game where it will change specific dialogue. Like, for example, when you meet Eli, he will speak in a different language if you have the interpreter, and the interpreter will help you understand what he's saying. Otherwise, Eli will know that you don't understand that language or you don't have a way to speak it, so he'll just speak English. That's different dialogue. But these are things that I think make worlds feel more alive and interesting, that keep you coming back to them to see, what did I miss? What's next? Oh, I saw this secret online. I want to do that. What is that like? Those things keep you coming back to games because it makes it feel fresh. There's always something new you can try, or even if you've tried it before, there's 100 different things that are unlockable, doable, missable, whatever. Even ways to fight bosses that you might not think of. And then it makes it feel like you actually had agency over the game. Maybe it is a little bit the illusion of choice, but it's such a good illusion of choice that it makes it feel affected in and lived in by your character.
Yeah, it gives it replayability. Which I think, again, like I said at the very beginning, Metal Gear Solid probably has one of the best replayability of any games out there.
Yeah.
I just think they're also great with the details.
And it's sad to see how good Konami used to be with this. Silent Hill used to be really good with this too, with unlockables. Metal Gear Solid obviously used to be. And, Konami now is starting to make a comeback. We'll have to see if they do a good job with it or not. I'm rooting for them too, because if they do a good job, that means more good games for all of us.
Right.
But it's a little frustrating how certain things have been handled already with like Silent Hill Ascension or even Metal Gear Solid The Master Collection, which I still like, but wish was a little more fleshed out. I just hope that they can kind of go back to this. This was like peak creativity in gaming. It's something that made Metal Gear Solid so special, and I hope that we can see it again. So if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Let us know what other kinds of videos you want to see. I want to do more RPG and JRPG videos as well. We're going to be doing more with Metal Gear Solid, want to revisit James Bond and some other stuff, so I'm very interested in your suggestions down there. I do my best to read all of them. Thank you to our channel members. If you want to join our channel membership, as of recording this, at the lowest tier, there is actually, I believe, 15 to 16 members only videos. At the higher tier, there is actually, of course, over 25 members only videos. We do have a Patreon, which has its own stuff. We have another channel, Degenerate Plays, where we played through Metal Gear Solid 1 and Metal Gear 1. So lots of stuff coming up there too. All in the description below, so I hope to see you on some of those. Have a fantastic day, and as always, everyone, stay shway.